Top of the hour. It is noon. Once again, it is a happy snack at noon here at the Six Figure Academy. My name is Wei from the Six Figure Academy. If this is the first time you're joining us, this is our weekly live happy snack session where we talk about different ideas, strategies, topics, learnings around how to open up your money flow, optimize your mindset, and more importantly, create a lifestyle of happiness. Or mastering happiness, rather. So anyway, still looking to set things up properly here. But this week, we want to talk about an interesting topic that has come up a lot during these times. Now, we all know or have heard of the idea and the concept or that people talk about that it takes money to make money. And usually it's in the context of sales, like when people are talking about investing in different things necessary for your business. And the justification for putting that money in is to say, well, it takes money to make money. And to a certain degree, yes, that does make sense. What we want to do is talk about today is first of all, understanding what the whole point behind that statement is, that it takes money to make money, because we want to first and foremost remember that money is simply an accelerant. Money simply helps makes things go faster. What we want to address today is the attachment that money is the only way to make more money. In other words, the topic of today is how to become rich with no money. Now, the reason why this is a topic is because a lot of people, due to dire circumstances in life or things that happen, may find themselves without money and still have the desire and want to be rich. Now, if you watched any of our previous Happy Snacks about the concept of being rich, we want to make sure that before you even think about wanting to become rich with no money, that you first define what being rich means to you. That's going to help a lot, because before you can apply the principles of what we're going to talk about today in the Happy Snack about being rich with how to become rich with no money, you can't, even with money, you'll have trouble becoming rich if you don't define what rich actually means. And what I mean by define, I mean with detail, instead of this nebulous, like, oh, everybody just knows what being rich is. No, it's different for everyone. And the more personalized you define that concept of being rich to be, the easier it is for you to be rich. So let's talk about how to become rich with no money by understanding, first and foremost, you got to embrace that. What I talked about earlier is that money is an accelerant. Money is a facilitator. Money is not a requirement for survival instinct, or whatever the case may be. It facilitates it and makes things easier. Okay. Why do we know that to be true? Because we've heard of many stories where people start bootstrap businesses and start from grassroots and just hustle and bustle, blood, sweat, and tears, and building everything from the ground up because they didn't have enough money to traditionally start by investing in certain things. And so they kind of like pennies by pennies and nickels and dimes until they finally got things together. That's why you hear about these large institutions such as Hewlett Packard and all these other companies in the past that back in the Silicon Valley days, the startup days, where everybody started off in a garage, right? Why did they start off in a garage? Because they didn't have enough money to get in an office. So, but then they became these amazing internationally successful companies, but they became rich per se by their standards with no money to start with. So we know that it's possible. We hear the stories that is. So the question is, well, how do we do that? Well, we want to recognize what that actually is, being rich, and what you want to define richness to be, so that it doesn't require money to get there. Now, if you define richness, for example, or being rich as being an investor, someone who invests money, so you make it very specifically about money, then of course, you're going to have a hard time reaching that definition of rich with no money if the definition of richness requires money to satisfy that definition. If you instead define richness not in terms of money, but like being rich is, for example, something like being rich of opportunities. The opportunity to be rich the possibilities and the probabilities, they increase your possibilities and probabilities of being rich in this lifetime, however you define rich to be, starts with opportunities. If you have no opportunities and all the money in the world, does that really make you rich, help you become rich? Now, one might argue to say, well, if you have all the money in the world, aren't you already rich? But that's only if you define rich as being money only, like having an abundance of money. But I would venture to say that most people who are happily rich define rich to be more than just money. They also add things like quality of life, family, friends, love, all these different things that are, required for them. I mean, that's their own definition, right? So it always goes back to, how are you going to define being rich? So to become rich with no money, it first starts with defining what richness is for you, and to shift your perspective. If you find yourself or you catch yourself defining being rich as only some kind of a money-driven endeavor, and you don't have the money to satisfy that definition, then you're going to be stuck behind in what we call a quandary, something, you're kind of stuck in this infinite loop. Well, I can't be rich because the way I define rich is with money, and if I don't have money, then I can't be rich. So instead, I would challenge you to re-examine and redefine how you define rich as a richness of opportunities. Because think about this. If part of your definition of rich is money, then let's understand what money is in the form of energy flow, okay? Everything that we know to be, this is what I love about super colliders. They have basically helped us embrace the fact scientifically that, the basis of all physical existence and maybe even metaphysical existence is energy-based. So money being energy-based, if you look at what's going on in the world right now with crypto, there's no physical representation of that currency, and yet it is helping people increase their financial wealth. How is that possible? It's because it's in the form of energy, digital number ones and zeros that then get translated into electrical impulses that then get sent all over the place, which then translate into dollars and cents, which then can be used electronically, energetically, to purchase things and pay your bills and all those different things. Okay, so if we can all agree that money is just another form of energy, think of the abundance of, think about what physics talks about, is that energy is neither destroyed or created, it's simply transmuted, which means that if money is a form of energy, the abundance of money is pretty much infinite. Money is all around you. It is human beings that keep money from coming into their world because they're trying to force that form of energy called money to show up in your world in a certain way. So what happens is that if we're not letting it in, then guess what? We're not allowing us to see the opportunities for that to happen. So to distill this down, to summarize this, the esoteric discussion that we're having here of how to become rich with no money, it's recognizing that money is already all around you in the form of opportunities. Does it require money for you to go online and start a virtual business? Does it require money? I mean, I'm assuming that if you can watch this and watch what, this video right now, and you don't have any money, so to speak, no money, you've got to be watching it on something, probably on a cell phone or on a tablet or even on your computer. In this day and age, that's all you need to start to open up the doors to opportunities to let money in. What stops that from happening are the limitations that we have in our mind. Okay? Those limiting beliefs that believe that it takes money to make money, and that's the only way that can happen. Whereas if you release the shackles, release the limitations of what you can do. For example, we've had many students come into our programs. Some of them are already, in relatively successful business and are wanting to take it to another level. But there are many who are just wanting to get their money blocks handled, their prosperity flow handled. And what happens is they join the program not knowing what kind of business they have, not actually having a job sometimes. And despite that, they're able to find ways to let money in to their lives that will then contribute to their ability to become rich. So the simplest answer to how to become rich with no money is to let money in. Recognizing that money, like energy, like air, like water, is all around us. And if we simply let go of the perceptions and the limitations of what we thought is what makes money work, or how we make money, or how we become rich, that's when we have an increased opportunity to become rich. Now, this is a concept that is not mainstream. Why? Because if you are to sit down and talk to the ultra wealthy, the ultra happily wealthy, ultra happy and ultra wealthy, and really kind of dive into help understanding how they perceive the world and how money works. And the reason why I know this, because I've done this, you will find that they perceive money in some shape or form in that way, that it's a function of how you let that flow come into your world as opposed to it just passing you by. And the way you can do that is apply yourself, take action, set an intention, let go of limiting beliefs, and recognize that all that you have right now within your ecosystem of self is all you really need to become, or take you to the first steps of becoming rich in this lifetime. And all that requires no money. I know this to be true because when I'm in my younger years, when I was in college and just getting whatever job that I could, I remember showing up with some basic clothing on, okay, because I was a student and couldn't afford much, got everything kind of secondhand, went and interviewed and got a job doing door-to-door. And all I needed to do was show up on time, go through the brief training that they had, and be willing to be dropped off. I didn't even have to drive. They would drop me off into a particular neighborhood where I'll go door to door selling gas cards. And that I did. I hustled, I applied myself, and became one of the top salespeople to make a really good income, which then gave me the opportunity to leverage that into new opportunities. So what money then allowed me to do was to open the doors to new opportunities, to increase the money flow, to provide more pathways for money to flow into my life. So if you are stuck in a place where you're wondering how to become rich and you don't think you have any money, what you're really needing is to tap into the resources within and using that to open up the pathways to allow money to come in that will contribute to you becoming rich. And it all starts with here. So many people start with getting the right job, getting the sales strategy down, getting all these different business type strategies in place. But that's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. If you truly want to become rich with no money, money isn't the part of what helps you become rich. It's the ecosystem of self that goes on in here, and the commitment to do so, to reach what it is that you define, so that you can become rich with no money. So at the end of the day, it's not money that helps you become rich. It's about your conviction, your definitions, and what you are willing to do to let go the old paradigms of beliefs and limitations and perceptions and rules of what you thought was required for you to make money, so that you can actually allow money. You not make it, because remember, energy can't be created or destroyed. You're not making money. You're allowing the money to flow into your direction versus somewhere else or to someone else, because there's plenty of it out there, right? So I know there's a lot of concepts and ideas around this that may not necessarily immediately sit in and make sense. And that's okay, because this is what separates those that are able to break away from the herd, so to speak, and start to elevate themselves to new levels of richness, new levels of success, new levels of happiness, and new level of financial flow. If you have any questions about that, comment below and make sure you tag me or tag the Six Figure Academy so that I can immediately jump in and we can have an open discussion about it. Or if you think that this was something that just didn't make any sense to you, then you can just basically give a thumbs down. But if you liked it, give a thumbs up. Or if you have a different idea of something that maybe I could do another happy snack on, comment below as well. Or you could join us in one of the Facebook communities. I mean, there's so many different ways. Just engage or just subscribe, hit notification. You can join us every single week for a happy snack at noon moving forward. Okay. So make sure you hit the notification bell so that way you don't miss anything. But other than that, I think that's the happy snack for the week on how to become rich with no money. I'm looking forward to the comments or anything else that you may want to contribute or not contribute. But everything is feedback. Okay. Don't hold back, because that's how all of us, me included, can improve and grow to help serve you better. All right. With that being said, I'll see you guys next week for another happy snack at noon. See ya.